So if I go to them and say, okay, tell me about this tradition, is it true? They're going to tell me it's a child's story because they still have the traditions within Judaism. But why is it? Because that's what I'm saying. Because at the time, there were so many legendary stories about Dhul-Qarnayn that even when you look at the earliest Tafsir, right, for 450 years, the ijma was that it was literal. Now we can see, because I've got the evidence, actually first, after 350 years, the first person who mentioned it might not be literal is Ṭabarī. He said it's not, it doesn't make sense because not based on the...
Why we are talking about hadith when we do not agree with the...
Wait,
bro.
let me explain.
I don't want to go there.
Let me explain.
I don't want to go into
hadith.
hadith.
It's not hadith. I'm saying Ṭabarī is the scholar. We're saying how your scholars interpreted it. So, because when you go to Ṭabarī, and Ibn Taymiyyah said he only quotes the Sahaba and sound sources. Now, in his tafsir, he says that the people in Mecca only disagreed whether it was a muddy pool or a warm spring. It was only after 450 years, because what happened is there was a battle between the Muslims and the Greeks.
What do you mean by muddy pool?
Because it says in the Qur'anic, there's the sunset in a warm spring.
Yes, so?
Now, the earliest Muslims disagreed whether because the word can be pronounced Hamiyah or Hamiyah.
If I arrive on the time of the sunset, near a pool, or near a river, or near a sea, what's happening? The sun is setting.
Let me explain my point.
In every theological debate between Christians and Muslims, one question always matters: who has truly preserved God's revelation? Let's begin with the Jews. The Jewish people have guarded the Torah for thousands of years. They didn't just copy the text. They built a wall of commentary around it, midrash, Talmud, rabbinic debate, preserved generation after generation. When you ask a rabbi about the law, he doesn't guess. He draws from a living chain of tradition. And if no consensus exists, he simply says, "We don't know." Now look at the Christian tradition. From the first century, Christians didn't rely on Scripture alone. They preserved the faith through apostolic tradition. The apostles taught with authority, and the early church recorded, explained, and protected their teaching. Fathers like Irenaeus, Justin Martyr, Origen, and Augustine built a foundation of sound doctrine, one that was tested in ecumenical councils and confessed in creeds that still echo today. Now let's turn to Islam. Surah Al-Kahf 1886 says, Dhul-Qarnayn saw the sun setting in a muddy spring. Literal? Figurative? Let's see what Muslim scholars said. For over 300 years, the answer was clear: literal. Al-Ṭabarī, one of Islam's most trusted early scholars, quoted Ibn Abbas, who said, "The sun sets in a spring of black mud." He didn't say, "It appeared to be setting behind the horizon." He said plain and simple, "It sets." Centuries later, Ibn Kathir said the same. Even Qurtub preserved traditions that described the sun sinking into a spring of fire. No symbolism, no scientific lens, just a plain surface-level reading, and they believed it. Only later, when Islamic thought collided with Greek philosophy and science, did things begin to change. Fakhr al-Din al-Raza, writing centuries later, offered a softer reading. Maybe, he suggested, it only appeared that way to Dhul-Qarnayn. But even then, he never dismissed the early scholars. But by the 20th century, with pressure mounting from modern science, modernists like Rashid Rida rewrote the view entirely. In Tafsir al-Manar, he said, "The sun never entered any spring. It was all illusion, not because of new revelation, not because Muhammad explained it differently, but because science demanded it." So let me ask you, if the Qur'an is perfect, why must its meaning change to survive modern knowledge? If the early Muslim scholars were right, then science contradicts the Qur'an. But if the early scholars were wrong, then the preserved tradition of Islam was wrong for over 1,000 years.
Let me explain my point. Because my point is going to go against what you're saying. Wait. My point is this. For 450 years, the ijma was literal. What happened is in 1071, there was a war between the Muslims and the Greeks. Now, the Greeks were highly educated in science, so they refuted converting to Islam based on one of those verses to say the sun does not set in the sea. And what you will see, and I can bring evidence.
What happens
And
when you go to a seashore and when you sit at the sunset? What happens?
Listen to what I'm saying. Listen to what I'm saying. I'm saying after 450 years, the Islamic consensus changed after this fashion. So all the scholars, Ibn Abbas, Ṭabarī, said the Sahaba believed it was literal. It's only because science refuted the Quran, they changed their opinion, and we have evidence of it. And I'm going to do a presentation on it, maybe. Or if I debate with someone, I'm going to bring it up.
What is this? It says the sun sets.
Yes.
So when Quran says the sun sets in a muddy water,
Alright.
if you reach in at the time of the sunset, if you reach to a seashore or to a, let's say, a big, when you reach at the sunset, what's happening at that time?
So it says he found people by the sunset. Where were the people?
No, when it says,
but it says there were people by the sunset.
Yeah, so
where were the people?
Maybe around the shore, in that city, in that area. Why?
Exactly.
And
So
you
then
say
why-
scientifically.
So
Either literally, we try to need to understand
But the
something.
sunset's
The
everywhere.
language when we use the sunset.
yes.
What time you coming? Oh, sunset.
Okay.
It's something that we understand as a human being.
Okay.
It's not
At
that.
the time they didn't. Okay, this is my question for you.
No.
No, but listen. Okay,
logic.
listen to this question. Why?
The way
Okay,
we use the language.
Simple question.
The
for
way
you.
we use languages.
Okay, simple question. Why is it for 450 years all the tafsirs?
I don't know about that. I need to
Research
get.
it.
Yeah, I need to
Please.
study, and then I can.
Okay.
You're gonna coach me something I don't know about, and I say whatever
Oh,
comes.
that's
No,
fine.
I
That's
don't-
fine.
I can't.
No,
I can't.
I'm not gonna like twist your words or anything. I'm saying go and do the research.
It's not about twisting.
Because
It's about understanding
Okay.
something from a different point of view.
You have Tabari's tafsir on your phone.
No, I don't.
Read Tabari. Right? Ibn Taymiyyah said he only quotes sound sources. He never argued. So how is it he has a better understanding than someone who understood classical?
No, when did I say?
Well, that's why I'm saying. Let me finish my point then.
How did I say I
Because you
understand
said-
better
you
than
said- because you're saying-
Tabari? I
you're
never
saying-
said that.
But then you're saying the sunset. Everybody understands. So why is it the best scholars took it literally? If they understand the Arabic, he even says Ibn Abbas took it literally. So the person, because the best generations were the Sahaba, and your prophet prayed to Ibn Abbas for him to have the best interpretation. So their interpretation doesn't change based on the reading of the Quran, but based on what we know of science. That's problematic, because it should be the reading of the Quran that gives you the understanding of how to understand it, not that, okay, science says this, now we're reinterpreting the Quran.
But does it go against it? Against science?
The sun setting in the pool. Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't.
The sun, if they can,
In a real life situation,
Yes.
it doesn't change anything. Every day I see the sun set.
listen to what I'm saying.
You're not even trying to understand my point
I
of view.
understand.
But yeah, if there is a sea in front of us,
I understand.
it does
Your point is very clear.
literally it sits in a pool.
Your point is very clear. But this is why
If I come from a different country and reach that point, I reach to a
You're
point
not understanding
that
the
the sun
argument.
is sitting
That's
in
fine.
the pool.
The claim, I see the sun setting into the sea, is not a factual description. It's a matter of visual perception. Yes, we all see the sun going down toward the horizon, and if we're standing at the beach, it might look like it's dipping into the water. But that's just an optical illusion, easily explained by science. The Earth rotates, giving the appearance that the sun is moving. No modern scientist believes the sun actually touches the ocean or sinks into a pool. So when someone uses that everyday visual experience to justify the literal reading of the Qur'an, they're confusing illusion with reality. A mirage cannot be used to defend a divine revelation that claims to speak absolute truth from God. But the deeper issue lies in what the Qur'an itself says. The key lies in two elements, the verb wajada and the phrase taghrubu fa aynin hamia. Etymologically, the word wajada in classical Arabic means to find or to discover something as it truly exists. It comes from the root letters wa, jim, dal, and in this form, it conveys actual objective discovery, not assumption or perception. It is not the word zana, meaning he thought, nor ra, which can imply visual perspective. When the Qur'an says wajada, it's not describing what something looks like. It's describing what Dhul-Qarnayn found to be true. Then comes the phrase taghrubu fa aynin hamia, setting in a spring of black mud. The word taghrubu comes from the classical Arabic root, gain, ra, ba. It carries the meaning to set, to disappear, or to go far away. This verb is consistently used in the Qur'an to describe the sun's physical setting, especially in reference to Maghrib. It is never used for metaphor or illusion. So linguistically, grammatically, and contextually, this verse does not support a metaphorical reading. It plainly states that Dhul-Qarnayn found the sun literally setting in a spring. There's no textual indication that this was a visual illusion. If the Qur'an meant to say it merely appeared that way, it could have used expressions like ra'a anaha ka'anaha tagrubu. He saw it as if it were setting, but such phrasing is completely absent. More importantly, classical commentators like Al-Ṭabarī, Al-Qurtubi, and even Ibn Kathir interpreted this verse literally for centuries. It wasn't until the 20th century, under pressure from science and Western criticism, that Muslim scholars began offering allegorical interpretations to protect the Quran's scientific credibility. So when someone defends a literal reading based on personal perception, they're only digging the hole deeper. Because the Quran isn't describing a casual visual experience. It's making a factual claim in the voice of divine revelation. And if that revelation states something that is objectively false, then it cannot be the word of an all-knowing God. It's the worldview of a 7th century man, trying to describe the universe with eyes that could only see the horizon.